Is anybody out there? Hiya, it's me, Susan. Last time I did one of these lives, it dawned on us that I forgot to actually introduce myself and say who I am. So I'm Susan. I'm an in-store demonstrator for Crafters Companion. So you might have seen me in Carlisle, Newton Aycliffe, wherever I've been on my travels. So while we've got this crazy time and we can't actually go anywhere, I thought that I would make the most of the time by doing some live streams with the things that I know. So I'm going to start off by showing you some samples of the things that I've done with these techniques. Now I haven't made any of them up onto a finished card because that is what we are going to be doing today. But first of all, I have this one. Now I don't know how much the camera is picking it up, but this is used on, well, I'm going to show you the technique in a minute, but you can see when it catches the camera, you can see all those little lines where the sparkle is gathered within your work. And then there's also, now this one is something that I did, you're going to see 4 different generations of the same technique. So I started out with bubble wrap and some of the sparkle ink, and just used it as sort of an imprint technique, and it created this really cool, and I don't know how much the camera's going to pick up. And then after that I went on to another one, and I left it a little bit on the bubble paper, and you can see that those dots are starting to form within it. And then I did it again. Because the great thing with sparkle inks is as long as you have a tiny little bit of ink, if you add water, you can get a technique from it, which is really, really cool. It just means that each time you do it, it gets lighter, but the pigment in them is so intense that it means that sometimes you can take 6 or 7 different imprints of something and still get an amazing effect. And then this one is my favourite. So this one, once I'd done all of that, I added a little bit of pink ink because I felt like it needed a little bit more, so I used pink garnet. And then I sprayed on top of the bubble wrap a clear sparkle pen in a little spray bottle, which I will be showing you as we get to the technique. And then I wrapped the bubble wrap around it and left it overnight. And it created this really cool sort of a honeycomb technique. It reminds me a bit of hydrangeas. And then for the other side of the technique, which was the first one that I showed, so when it's done on a darker or a brighter paper, you can see those lines showing up more. And here it is on a pale. Let's see, this is an imprint. This is about the 5th time. Can you see that sparkle catching there? Just at that corner. And then we have this one, which is very bright. Now, one thing I would say when doing these techniques is this is on stamping paper. You do get a different technique when you do it on watercolour card, and I'll explain a bit about that when I come to it. And then there's this one. This is the first one that I did. And I love the fact, this to me, it just looks like a cracked glass effect. And then I had a lot of wastage left on my tape. Oh, actually, I've missed one. And then there's this one, which again, there, that's better. Can you see that sparkle catching the light? And then I had a lot of waste ink on my table. And as I say, even if you've got a tiny little bit of ink left, you can use it dead easily. All you've got to do is spray with some more water because it's water activated. So with my mess that was left on my craft desk, I created this beautiful backdrop. And then I did the same thing again, but instead of spraying with water, I sprayed with a little bit of sparkle ink in a water bottle, which, as I say, I'll be telling you about in a bit, and created this one. So what I'm going to use for these is watercolour paper. I've cut them down. It's the Crafters Companion watercolour paper, which has a really nice weight to it. And it doesn't matter which size you use. On some watercolour papers it does. So you can use stamping card for this, But the difference with stamping card is although it will take most things that you throw at it, sometimes when you're adding water to it, you'll end up with a little bit of buckle to it. With the watercolour cardstock, this has been specially pressed, which is a whole process that it goes through to make sure that it can hold as much water as you can actually throw at it. So that's why I'm using this today. And as I say, if you do use if you don't have watercolour paper but you do have a stamping card, you can use it. You'll just get a slightly different result with it. So I'm going to start off. Now the reason I started trying to do this is that at this crazy time a lot of us can't get out and actually buy any craft products. So using things that are within the home and just having to play around and seeing what you can do with them is a really good idea at the moment. So all that I've used for this process is cling film. Oh, it's in connection to the phone is lost. Oh, it's back on. Sorry about that. I don't understand why that happened. So all I've used is cling film, and I like to try and use the same one as many times as I possibly can, because the planet, essentially, we all need to be a little bit more concerned about what is going on in the world. And also bubble wrap. I'm sorry for the noises, everything is dying in my craft room essentially. You can see that I've used this one previously and you can see a little bit of colour on there. As I say, that doesn't matter because it's just more colour. So there's two ways you can start out with this. I've just noticed, is this actually going live? Because it seems to have paused. Can someone message and let me know if it is live? I hope it is. Sorry if it's not. So there's two different ways you can do this. You can either, I think I have paused. I'm not sure if it has or not. 2 seconds, I'm going to pop up my picture while I have a look and see what's going on. Hello, I seem to have lost you there. Hopefully this is going to work. I really do apologise. Rach, if you could share it again, I would be really grateful. Hopefully this is going to work this time. So I'm going to switch to the other camera, and as I say, I'm using things from around the house. Now there's two ways you can go about this. You can either add your ink to your cellophane, as you call it in America, or cling film as we do in the UK, and then put your card on top and wrap it around, or you can add it direct to your card and then wrap it around. So for this video I'm going to do it by adding the water to the card and then putting the cling film on top. Now to do this I use just water. Now there's two different kinds of water bottles that you can use. So this one is a proper mister, and there is also, try to get it in view, but there's also a spray bottle. Now the spray gives you a lot more water out at each square, whereas this one gives more of a gentle stream. So what I tend to do when I'm initially doing this technique, I want my page quite wet. So to do that, I tend to use this normal water spray bottle, whereas the mister I use a little bit later on. So what I'm going to do, I'm just checking to see if there's any comments. Rach is back saying hello. So I'm just going to spray some water on there. And this is a really good technique for if you've been messing around with inks and you've got some ink on a piece of card by accident. This is a really good technique to do because it doesn't really matter. As you can see, at least I think you might be able to see, there's little bits of ink splattered on here, and it doesn't matter because it's going to go in with the technique. So the colours that I'm going to use, I'm just going to pick the first three that I see. So here I've got Solar Red, Moonstone and Rose Quartz. Not colours I would normally pick to go together, but I like the challenge. And I'm just going to give them a shake to get the glitter to go through them. Now, as I say, if you don't want glitter or much glitter, if you're doing, say, a man's project, then don't give them a shake. The glitter will stay at the bottom and you'll hardly get any to your project. So I'm just taking the lids off. I'm just going to move that camera up slightly. There, that way you can see what's going on in the pots. So as I say, 3 pots there. They are the Rose Quartz, Solar Red and Moonstone Blue. And I'm just going to re-spray my my paper, but this time I'm using the mister because I don't want quite as much added. And then I've got some little pipettes. You can use brushes, but for this demonstration I'm going to use pipettes. So I'm just going to give each one a pipette. And then I'm going to pick up, I'm just going to check and see that this is still actually going live, because it would be a real disappointment if it didn't. Let's see. I think it is. Fingers crossed. So I always go in with the lightest colour first, because otherwise it can get swallowed by the darker colour. So I'm just going to put a couple of dots. Now this, you can never tell what each piece is going to look like, which is what I kind of love about it. And I love how it feathers out. And then I'm going to go in with the blue. So as I say, I put my darkest colour on last. Otherwise your darkest colour tends to overtake everything. And then I'll not put as much on of the red. But I love it when it actually hits, and then just watching the way that it shapes. And you could also do this technique on Yupo paper. And something else you can do is when you've got ink left in your pipette, but not enough to do a squirt, you can just do a couple of flicks with it, which again adds, and you can do 2 of them at the same time. Now, I will say, the other day I was doing this technique, and my mum says, "What on earth have you done?" Oh, I've got a message off Rach saying, "Oh, I was looking forward to your technique." Blinking internet issues. I hope that doesn't mean this isn't going live. Right, we'll keep going anyway. I'm sure I'll find out if it's not. So as you can see, at the moment we've got all of those inks sitting on top of the surface. So what I'm going to do now is use my mister, because I don't want quite as much water, and I'm just going to give a couple of sprays just to keep that ink on the top moving around. And then I'm going to put my cling film on top of it. And you want lots of creases within it, because the creases are what makes that glitter correlate within those areas to create the really cool effects. And you can see here there isn't a lot of ink there. So what you can do there is peel it back a bit and spray a bit more water, and then you can use and just pull that colour over. And you can never tell what it's going to look like until it's dry. So I'm going to wrap the cling film around that. You want to do it quite tight. I really hope I'm not doing this for myself. Right, and then I'm going to set that one to one side to dry. And then here is one that I did earlier. I used slightly different colours, and you can see the cling film is off, and then I've got this really cool, oh, that's really picking up well. So imagine some flowers cut out of that. It would be absolute amazing. The colour does look slightly different on camera than what it does on where it's come up. So that's that one. And then another way you can do this is with the bubble wrap. So this time I've got another piece of my white watercolour cardstock, and this time I'm going to go direct onto the bubble wrap, but I'm going to use different colours this time, just because with this technique really dark ones show up better. So my favourite 3 colours are going to be what I go for. Well, actually I might do 4 this time. So I'm going to use Starry Sky, Pink Garnet, Moonstone again. Actually no, not Moonstone. Oh yes, I will use Moonstone. And where's the other one at? There's a purple, there it is. And the Amethyst colour. And the reason I've picked those colours really is because I've already got those colours on my bit of kitchen wall. And actually I'll show you, this ink has sat on here since last night when I was practicing this technique. So I'm going to show you what I mean about when I say that you can have your ink sitting for quite a while and you can reactivate it. So just to prove a point, I'm going to show you that. So I don't know how much I can see. Hello Cheryl Cross, I've just noticed that you are following me. So you can see I've reactivated that ink, and if I dip into that with a piece of card, then you still get quite a cool technique. And as I say, that has been sitting there since last night. So I'm going to pop that piece to one side. And normally I would turn it around, I would keep dipping several times, but I would dry between each layer. So I've told you the colours that I'm using. Oh, I haven't shaken them. It's always, as I say, if you want to get glitter within there, it is always really important to shake. And I really hope that there is people watching this, because now that the oh, Rach is here, thank goodness for that. I wasn't sure if I was just doing it for myself, and I was thinking, if this hasn't worked and I'm going to have to do it all again, and it's just not going to... right. Oh, actually, it looks like this is watching my old video, so maybe... Oh, I am live, and I've got 33 people watching. Thank you to you 33 people. That means a lot. I'd be happy if I was doing it by myself, to be honest. I do talk to myself. Oh, Rachel says, yay, you're back. Yeah, I do talk to myself when I'm crafting, which I think quite a few of us probably do. So again, I'm just going to put some drops. And I say you can use a brush to do this if you don't want to put as much ink on. You can just use a brush and drop it in places, or if you don't have the sparkle pots, you can use the pens. In fact, I'll get a pen and show that to you. So for a little bit of variation, I've got an orange sparkle pen, and I'm just going to scribble on a little bit of that, just to show you don't have to have the pots to do these techniques. You can use either or. And to be honest, I love both of them. Sometimes I like using the pens, particularly if I'm colouring, rather than faffing on with a watercolour pen. And other times the pots just come in really handy. But I always end up covered in ink. Last night I sent Rach a picture where it looked like I'd been eaten by a vampire. I had a pink mark all the way down my neck because my hands get very dirty. Not that the product leaks or does anything like that, just the fact that I always get my hands in. I enjoy it. But yeah, so I had like what looked like a vampire mark on my neck last night. And I sent it to her and she was like, oh my god, that looks terrible. And I was like, yeah, it's ink. So the moral to that story is, when you've been playing with ink, do not go in public without checking to see how it looks. So I've got quite a few 4 different colours on there, and now I want those colours to mix quite a bit. So I'm going to go in with the water, but because I want quite a bit of water, this time I'm going to use the heavy spray bottle. It's just, you don't have to have 2 different kinds of spray bottles, but I find that sometimes it really helps. If you're not wanting your colour to move around too much, adding this amount of water on it compared to that one isn't that great, because it can affect the way that you've got your look. But I'm also going to add in here this, which this is a Spectrum Noir water barrel pen. And all I've done is taken a little bit of my clear sparkle ink and picked up a little bit with a pipette and placed it into this pen. So I'll show you how much I've used, although my pen's currently full, so I don't need to refill it. So that is about the amount that I put. Has it frozen again? Oh no, is it back on? Sorry, it came up saying that it wasn't working. So that's about how much I put in anyway. And then I fill the rest of it with water. And it gives you a really nice subtle shimmer, but it doesn't matter actually how much you put in your pen. I'll turn this other camera on for a sec, because the other one's having problems. It doesn't really matter how much glitter you put in your pen, because you'll get a different effect. So sometimes if I'm wanting a very subtle shimmer, I'll add a little bit less sparkle and a bit more water. Or if I'm wanting it to be quite harsh but cover a larger area, then I'll add more sparkle into it. So it's something that is completely versatile according to what you're wanting. So I'll switch back to the other, and then I'm just going to spray it all over with this sparkle ink, and that's going to create a really intense sparkle. Because the only thing better than, I always say at all my demos, the only thing better than glitter or sparkle is double glitter or sparkle. So I'm now going to take my watercolour pen, just knocked over my water bottle, not watercolour pen, watercolour paper, and I'm just going to lay it down on top of those colours. I'm just going to smooth it in around it. And for this one, I'm going to turn it over, and you have this really cool effect. But then, so that's my first print. And then I'm going to do the same thing again with this one, but this time I'm going to use my Crafter's Companion low tack tape, and I'm going to tape the cling film around it. And you want to get it quite, not cling film, it's bubble wrap this time. I don't know what you call that in America. If anyone is watching from America, I would love to know what you call bubble wrap in America. So I'm just wrapping it quite tightly around it, so that the bubble wrap is held quite firm to the card, because that way you'll get the better imprint of the bubbles on it. And then if I flip that over, and you can see the way that the inks are mixing. And what you can do with this is like we did with the cling film, you can just use your fingers to push this colour around. Now normally if I wasn't doing this live, I would have added a bit more water to have got the colours moving a bit more freely. See, this is how I end up with ink on my fingers. And this is a great technique to do with kids. Now one thing I will say is normally when I'm working with sparkle inks, I do, see it my hands. Normally when I'm using sparkle inks, I do use my heat gun quite often between layers. With this, I don't. The reason for that is if you heat the plastic, particularly bubble wrap, the fumes that will come from it are really, really dangerous. So never, if you're doing these techniques, it'll take an hour, 2 hours for this to dry tops. Do not risk using a heat gun on it, because it's just not worth it because of the health impact on it. So I'm just going to move that to one side. And then here is 2 that I made earlier. So now the thing with watercolour is it does always dry lighter essentially it is a watercolour product, the inks. They do always dry lighter than they look when you put them on. That is the same with all water products. So as you can see, I've got this really cool technique going on. I hope that sparkle, oh yeah, that is catching. And on the next piece, and you can see that the water has actually soaked through and coloured the back of this one. If I'd used stamping card, that would be buckling, but because it is a water card, it takes it all. So you're ready for the big reveal. Ta-da! So again, I'm going to pick up there. So now we've got to make up some cards. Although, should I throw in one more sparkle ink technique? What do you reckon, Mum? Should I throw in another sparkle ink technique? My mum's going to say no. Right, I'm going to throw in one more, just because I can. So I'm going to go for lighter colours this time. So I'll go with that, and I'll go with a nice yellow. So I'll have to cut another bit of the watercolour card because I didn't plan on doing another one, but I'm having fun. I hope you are too, and I'd love to see if anyone actually tries out these techniques. I'm just cutting my card. If anyone tries out these techniques at home, I would absolutely love to see what you do with them. I took 2 bits of card. Right. So what I'm going to do now, this is something that I haven't even practiced. I saw it done on a video yesterday and I thought it looked quite cool. So, and it incorporates, I've been going to an art class. Those that watched my last live will know this. So I've been going to an art class for almost the last year now. And I've learned a lot through going to that class. So what I'm going to show you is one of those things. So I'm going to draw a tree. Now, I'm not the greatest artist. I do apologise. I'm trying and I'm learning, and I will get there. So I'm going to start off just drawing a tree base. Now, you'll not be able to see because this is a clear watercolour pen. So I'm just drawing a trunk. And then I'm going to take some of the gold, spun gold, I think this one's called, and drop it in to where that water was, and just continue to drag that out. Now I know you wouldn't normally get shiny trees with glitter in, but wouldn't nature be so much better if you did? Now you always have chunks that are slightly bigger at the bottom. And then I'm going to get some pushes and I'm going to arch this out. Now, as I say, I'm not an artist. I am not Sheena Douglas. I wish I was. But I have learned a lot from going on my course. And the good thing with this is it doesn't have to be, every tree is different. It doesn't have to be completely precise. And you do end up with like little knobbly bits on your tree, and those in me art class, if they're watching, will be like, oh God, she's being brave. Because every time in class I complain. I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. I'm no good at this. I don't have any talent. And they're always saying, you do, but I never listen. So I'm just thickening up that chunk again because the trees always look thicker at the bottom. And then as they split, that's when they start to get thinner. And I'm just drawing some at my class, there was a lovely gentleman called Les that helped me, because I really struggled with drawing trees, and he helped me. He says, you've always got to leave room for the birds to fly through the tree. So that's why there's lots of space in this. Right, so at the moment it looks like a bit of a dodgy wonky tree, I know. But this is where the fun bit comes in. So now I've got yellow, green and a pinky colour. I'm going for like an autumn effect sort of tree. I've just noticed a little bit there that looks a little bit odd. That makes that look a bit better. I keep altering that bit there because Les would tell us it wasn't right. So now what I'm going to do is using the bubble wrap that I was using earlier. I'm going to use this to make the leaves. So I'm just scrunching it up, and I'm going to take a bit of green. I'm just going to paint it on, and then I'm going to take a bit of yellow and paint it on, and it doesn't matter if the colours mix. And then I'm going to take a little bit of rose quartz and paint that on, and then all I'm going to do is bounce that off the tree. And then again, I need to add some more paint. Now obviously you can use a bigger piece of bubble wrap to get the right, and do make sure that you're using different brushes for each ink, otherwise you'll contaminate your colours. And again, add some more. Add some more yellow. And then I'm going to blast that with a heat gun, and then I'm going to go in with a little bit darker colour. At least I would blast it with a heat gun if my heat gun was turned on. So I'm just drying this off. And I'm going to go in with a darker green, and I'm also going to add some little bushery down at the base of the tree, like there's some bits of grass growing around it, or there's some fallen leaves. So here we go in with some darker. Now obviously I'd be a little bit more careful if I wasn't doing this on a live video. And then I'm going to go in with some lighter again. And then some of the peach again. brush. I couldn't find the brush I was looking for. So again, I'm still just drawing on it. Obviously, I should have had something down here to protect it, but you're getting the idea. Got a little bit of scrap paper there. I'm just adding, oh, sorry, it switched to the other camera. I'm just adding some greenery along the bottom. And then I'll add a little bit of the light green as well. And then if you want to, you can take a fine liner, or you can take a fine liner or a Sharpie, any kind of those pen, and you can just go in with some additional details. So I've got my fine liners, art liners here. So I'm going to go in, and all I'm going to do is just draw some shrubbery, some grass coming out of the bottom. And you don't have to be very precise, it's just to add a bit of interest and a bit of detail, because you don't want it all going on at the top and then nothing at the bottom. And you can add, if you wanted to, you can add like some little flowers. Just like this. Obviously it's like wild flowers, so I'm not like taking time proper drawing, because this is on a live stream, but as normally I probably would take a bit more time. And then you can also go in and add some more definery to the branches. So actually I'm going to get my brown pen for this. So I'm going to use an alcohol marker for this bit. I've got my EB6 Illustrator. I've chose the Illustrator to use because it's a very fine point and I don't want it to be too in depth. So what I'm going to do with this is just go in on some of these marks where the branches have been lost and just add in some detail. And the thing with branches, as I say, is they're all different. Like from my window, my craft room window, I can see loads and loads of different trees because there's a cemetery across the road. So if I look now, I can see what they're like and how they're all going. So like these base ones that are coming from the tree need to be thicker than those ones that are at the end of it, because each time your twig breaks off it's getting thinner because it's not as big as it was. So those places where it's nearer need to be bigger. And when you look at it, drawing a tree, it isn't really that difficult as long as you stick to those. I'm not sure how much you can see. Now, I'm not going to draw over all of the sparkling that I put on for the tree base, but what I am going to do is add some effect to it using it. And that's going to break off there. So I'm just going to add just some detail to it, because your tree wouldn't be all one colour. It gets darker in places and lighter in others. And I'm going to do one of those little things that tree have, and just some little lines on it. And then I'm going to finally add just a little bit more to the top and some little bits to the bottom, just to finish it off. So to the top, I'm going to add a little bit more of the peachy colour. Isn't it marvellous when things go wrong? It's because I'm trying to do it in a rush. If I was doing this properly by myself, it would have gone completely perfect. But you are getting the idea. And I still quite like the effect. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of the pink, which I've just dropped. But that doesn't matter because we can just add that. And make that look like it was meant to be there. So, as I say, I'm going to just use one of these bubbles to just pick up a bit of the pink, and I don't want it too heavy, so I'm just going to dab it off. Did you hear that pop? And that's going to add some little wild flowers. And I think that is the finished piece. So I'm going to flick around so you can see. Now I think that's come up quite well. I forgot this camera. Considering the fact that I'm doing it live and I had all these bits, but it just looks like it's a windy autumn's day. The fact that it's lilting to one side. And obviously I've done that really quick. You would take your time doing it. So that's it for the sparkling side of it. So what I'm going to do now is show you how you can build up on the backgrounds that you've made. So I'm just putting the lid on the inks. So actually, other thing I will do is I'll show you, as I say, what I used with all of my leftover ink that's on my desk, because you will end up with some on your desk, particularly if you're like me, in a complete basket case that leaves things everywhere. So all I'm doing now is I'm gonna just grab a bit of catch-all to have handy. And I'll flick back to that camera. So you can see on my desk here there's quite a few different colours. It seems to be mainly yellow and green. Oh, and there's a bit of purple left in the purple syringe. And I'm just going to put them to one side because I need to wash them after. And then I'm going to spray, just move that up slightly just so you can have a better view. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is just spray, get these colours moving into each other. And then I'm going to take a print. And you can see that it's come off quite beautiful. And I'm just going to blast that with a heat dryer, as you can see. You want to make sure that each layer is dry completely, otherwise you'll just end up muddy in your colours. Particularly if you're using greens and yellows in particular, they can go quite a muddy colour. So then I'm just going to dip again on the bits where you could see there wasn't much. And that's what that's come like. And then the same on the other side. And again, I'm going to blast that with a dryer. And then I'm going to give another spray. And I'm going to pick up this lot here. Oh, I've got 2 new followers. Hello, Monica Oddbrat and Cheryl Cross. I hope that you are enjoying the live. You must be, if you've decided that you want to see more, so that's good. So I've got one little bit there that's been stubborn and won't pick up. And then you can use your finger if there's just a little bit like that just won't. And then blast that again. Cover that bit up. And don't worry about the fingerprints on the edges, you can clear that. So this way you aren't wasting any ink. And as you can see, that looks quite cool. I have to switch camera. So that looks quite cool. But then what we can do is normally I would take a few more prints of what I've got left on my table. But because it's alive, and it will take me quite a while to pick up all that ink because the pigment is so strong. Not that there's a hell of a lot of ink there, it's just that that's Crafters Companion products for you. Everything is always packed full with pigment, which means that you get those amazing results. So as you can see, that is the wastage, which, what pretty wastage is that? But then of course I have the sparkle ink in a pot, so in a spray bottle. So I'm just going to give that a shake to get that mixed in, and then I'm going to just add some more of that on so that it still has that sparkle to it. And I'm going to blast it with a heat gun again. And then I have the finished piece. Now I don't know how much it's going to pick up, but that's got a lovely sparkle and sheen to it now. So I'm going to set that bit to one side. Now I'm going to clean my hands a little bit. Reason for that is what I'm going to do with next, I don't really want to ruin by doing it. So I've got these Grime Boss wipes. I think a lot of people in the craft industry swear by them because One side of them is like embossed, so it really gets that off. And I also, when I'm at home, in fact at demos, I even take with me some soap that I've got that is green. It's by a company called what are they called? Anthropology, I think they're called. And they do a soap called A Whole Lot of Shaking Going On. It has a picture of Elvis on the front of the box, and that soap is just absolutely amazing. It takes off anything that I've got in my hands really easy. I know some people recommend Swarfiga. I find that hasn't. I'm going to switch to the camera because it's not interesting watching me clean my hands. Some people recommend Swarfiga, but I find that's really difficult on my fingers and stuff. So and let's face it, when you're a crafter, your fingers are like your prized asset. So these are what I use when I'm in the craft room and I'm wanting to get clean quick. And if not, if it's the end of the day and I'm wanting to get clean, then I use my green soap. So, and the good thing with Grind Boss is you can use them, like I've been using this one for about 3 months actually, I think. Well, not quite that much, about 3 weeks. So they last a really long time. So I'm going to switch back to the other camera. So the thing with backgrounds is you often make all these beautiful backgrounds and then it's like, what do I do with them? So there's all sorts you can do with them. It's all just about using your imagination. So I'm going to show you one of the ways that I came up with. Now I do have some Blue Peters because I knew that a little bit of this would take a little bit of time, and I didn't want you to be sitting for ages watching me do something. So you'll see what I mean about that in a minute. So I'm going to flick back and we are going to make up a card. So for this I'm going to use the Vintage Lace collection, which I absolutely love. Although I do say that about every single collection because I do love them all. But the Vintage Lace is just something that if I'm not sure what to do, if I come in my craft room and I'm having like crafter's block, I'll always go to the Vintage Lace. Because it's just so versatile a collection. So I thought that would go really nice for these backgrounds that I'm doing today. So what I'm going to use the Baroque frames, and we're going to make one of these pieces that we've done into a card. So I'm going to switch back to the other camera. Is there any comments coming in? I'll check first. I've got 15 people watching. Any comments? Oh, Max Edgar's watching. Hi, Max. Me and Margaret did our demonstrator training together. She's another very talented lady, and she's also lush. So I'm going to use one of the pieces that I'd done before that was drying. Let's see, which one should I use? There's that many pretty pieces of paper. I'm not quite sure which one. I'm going to go for this one. Right, so I'm going to go for, let's see, this bit here. So I'm going to trim this down so it's just a little bit shorter than a 5x5 A5 card piece. So to do that, I made these, I call them template sheets. They are from, I got mine in the Crafters Companion store. They're quilters template sheets. And I cut them down. I've got one for every different size card shape that I use. So like there's my 8x8, my 7x7. So I find them really useful for when I'm matting and layering, for trimming things, for figuring out where the centre is of something. So I'm going to pick up my guillotine and I'm wanting to make it this card so that it's a little bit shorter than an A5, a little bit smaller. So to start off with, I'm just going to trim the edge off that side, and then I'm going to bring in my template. So I want it to be roughly a square off the width. So I'm going to cut there, and then I'm going to bring back in, trim a little bit off that end just so we don't get any white edges. Bring it back in again. And again, I want roughly a square off. So move my template. And then I've got my perfect piece of cardstock. And now I'm going to use, as I say, the, what were they called, Rococo frame, Baroque frame, sorry. The Rococo is the rectangle ones. And I'm going to use a bit of tape to tape that down. Just to make sure that it doesn't go walkabout in my machine. And I'm going to use, if I can figure out where it has gone walkies to. It's on my desk somewhere because I had it out ready to use. And it appears to have disappeared. Why is it that always happens? I know I'm not the only one. There it is. I'm not the only one that this happens to. That as soon as you go to find something, it's like the crafty fairies have taken it away. So I've got the other one stuck on the inside. And I'm just going to double check using my guide sheet that is, doesn't matter how low it is, but I just want to make sure, yeah, that's pretty spot on. Just another bit of tape there. And I'm going to pop that through my Gemini machine. So I assume that most people know the plate combinations. Normally I would go through it. If anyone does want to know the plate combinations, just write it in the message below. And I'm just going to pop this through my Gemini machine. And my wire's gone out the back. Oh. The wonders of technology. My Alright. I hope, is this paused again? Just checking. I hope it hasn't paused. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down. Now I want to keep these bits, the ones come out already, sort of inside my die. I'm just going to paper piece that back in. Just going to have a quick drink. Right. And then I've got a piece of double-sided adhesive sheet. I'm just going to get it sort of to the width that I need. And I'm going to remove the background piece. Now, when I'm wanting to paper piece my pieces in, as weird as that sounds, I find that it's easier to, that bit's come out again, to try and keep your pieces in the die and then try and persuade them to move. This is because I've got tape on. Oh, typical, it's torn a little bit. I can fix that though. Right, so I've lost two pieces in that, but that doesn't matter. And I'm going to take this central piece out for now. and take that tape off. Right, so what I'm left with is this. I'm just going to pop those two little pieces back in. I really hope that this is still going live, because the iPad that I'm looking at to get if there's any comments or anything is frozen. So if I am talking to myself, then I'm doing a really good job despite everything that's going wrong. Right, so all of those pieces are in, and then I'm going to peel back the top layer of my adhesive sheet, and I'm just going to lay that on top of the die, and then turn it upside down. And then I'm going to make sure that all those pieces are poked out, just using a pokey tool. So essentially I am pushing them down onto the double-sided sheet. Now this is where I say that I've done a blue Peter. So I could do all of them. In fact, sometimes they all stick down anyway, which they have there. And then sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. So then I peel back the outline shape. Oh, something else has come up on my iPad, so I don't know if this is working. I just had an image of my great niece come up. Okay, it says it's working, so I'll keep going. Anyway, then I peel back this layer. Or you can leave that on and cut a layer in white and do that on top. So then I've cut in a layer of the same dyes in white, and then I've put the white layer on top of this layer that's being cut out. And that creates a really effective shape, and it means I also have these two pieces to use in another card going forward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my Ultimate Pro, and I'm going to make a card blank using the Centura Pearl Snow White double-sided, which is, to be honest, most of my card blanks are made using this card because I absolutely love it. So I've brought in my my Ultimate Pro, and I'm just going to put it up to the handle side, and I'm going to score down the half fold A4 line. For some reason I always like to go in with not just the small ball tool part, try to get it in camera, but also this little bit at the end, because I find that it gives me a nicer edge. And then I'm going to turn it over, but to the other side. And there I have my perfect card blank. That out the way. And then, as you can see, this fits perfectly on there because I used my template sheets. Now I'm going to stick this down, and to do that, I'm going to use a Crafter's Companion tape runner. There's two different kinds of these tape runners. I'm using the one that is the normal permanent roll, not the dotty tape one. So I'm going to stick this down. I'm just going to go around the edges of both the die cut out piece, but also the edge of the card itself. This keeps falling back down, meaning I think you can see what I'm doing and you can't. So the reason I love using this for positioning things is that it gives you wiggle time to get it spot on. So there's that layer stuck down. And then I'm going to add a sentiment to this bit here. Now, I don't know if this one is going to... No, it's not. I had this one that I was planning on use, which Rach sent me a load of Crafter's Companion stamps that she wasn't using anymore. And this was one of them. It says, things turn out best for the people who make the best out of the way things turn out. And I thought that at this time, that was a very true sentiment, really, because things aren't exactly the way that people would like them to be at this moment in time, and we've just got to get on with it, essentially. So instead, because that doesn't fit, I'm going to use another one Rach sent me, which is leave a little sparkle wherever you go, which is kind of my motto in life, because everywhere I do go, I do leave sparkle. In fact, me and my mum was saying yesterday, I have to get my bloods taken regularly, and I'm sure once or twice they must have had some glitter in my bloodstream. I'd be very, very, very surprised if they never did. So I'm going to use my Misty for stamping, because again, as I said last time, I do not have room for an 8-inch stamp platform on my desk, which sounds much better than I phrased it last time, which a friend made me aware of, and it sounded rather rude. So I'm just going to pop that roughly in place, and I'm going to select a embossing powder. Actually, no, I'm going to go for pink. I had selected a... You know when you have to make a decision and you're really struggling which one? I can't decide whether to use the purple or the pink. I think I'll go for the pink because it might bring out the colour in it. Right. So I'm going to use my VersaFine Black Onyx ink pad to stamp with, because that is what is on my desk. Just making sure that is completely straight. Two of the magnets have stuck together. Again, just re-ink. I'm just pushing down on it, and I think I'm going to ink one more time. Now, when you're using Centura Pearl to stamp onto, normally you would use an ink such as a Crafter's Companion Quick Dry or a Stays On, unless you were going to emboss. Reason for that is it takes so long to dry on Centura Pearl that it smudges, which isn't marvellous. So I'm just going to bring in another piece of paper and add my the Wow Embossing Powder Pink Fizz to it. Give a little tap and use my finger. Now I should have used my little embossing tool thing that takes out, just noticed a little bit die cut there, that stops the glitter from sticking in places where you don't want it, but that would have been organised, and like this is me. And before I blow the powder everywhere, I'm going to pop that back into the pot to use another day. I'll move that out of the way. And I'm just going to set this. See, that's now gorgeous and sparkly, and I'm going to use some 3D foam pads to stick that down. So I've got some 2mm foam pads here. I'm just going to peel that back. One tip I find, I know a lot of people make comments about trying to get the back off foam pads and tape and things. It's difficult. What I find is the easiest way is to sort of pull it forward, push it back, and then pull it forward again. And that way it tends to come off quite easily. And then I'm going to add a little bit of glue. Now my pin has broken that stops my little fine precision tip from closing up and from rusting. So I'm gonna, and I put in another one that wasn't Crafter's Companion, and needless to say, if something's not Crafter's Companion, it isn't as good a quality, so it rusted inside of it. So I've got some other collal glue that I'll use. So yeah, I know on one of Rachel's video we all talked about the pins and how we need to have extra, and the glue won't come out there. And I'm just going to spread that in so it's all over the tape. And the reason for this is just to give that a little bit extra pull, and it also means that I've got time to move it around and get it in the position that I want it to be in. I was just wiping the glue off my finger. And then position that in the place where it'd be. And then I made some little flowers earlier using the foam area, which if you're interested in, I will do another video on it another day. And I'm just going to stick those normally I would use hot glue, but who has time to wait for it to warm up? So I'm just going to hold them on for a second just to give them time for the glue to grab. And there we have our lovely card. Now, if I was doing this at home, like if I was just doing it normally, I'd probably add a couple of more embellishments on there, maybe a couple of gems, because I like things like that. But for this live, that is where I am going to leave it. So, switch back. Thank you very much for watching today. I know there's been a couple of technical issues. I must admit, at the beginning of this live, I wasn't prepared. I went live before I actually realised that I hadn't put my image on, so it sort of caught me on the hop. But I think it's turned out quite well. I hope that you've enjoyed it, that you're going to try out some of the techniques yourself and do them better than what I did, because it's very difficult when you've got the camera on and you're so conscious of so many things, so you make some silly little mistakes that you wouldn't make normally. But I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I hope that tonight you're going to be out for your clap for carers, and tomorrow have a lovely VE day. And I don't want to do a specific time on when I do these lives. It's just going to be when I've done something cool that I think you'd enjoy seeing. So I'll be popping up every now and then, but I will try and give a warning beforehand. So have a lovely rest of the week and a lovely weekend, and I will pop up again sometime soon. Thank you very much for watching and sticking with us through the issues that I had. Thank you. Bye bye.